When most people are out shopping for trucks, they aren't looking to spend $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 on a truck for something that they're probably going to replace within 2 to 3 years. Most people kind of want something that is decently well equipped when it comes to like entertainment or infotainment, but then also it's not crazy expensive, and it's also something that they could get work done with. Now in today's video, we're going to be comparing one of the two biggest trucks in America. So we have the Ram 1500 right here. We're going to start off with this one, and then I'm going to put it side by side and directly compare it to the Ford F-150 STX. So we're going to talk about that because while this one is a Bighorn package, it's basically the STX of how the F-150s are. So it's not a complete base model. I think those are called the classics. It's not a complete base model, but it's also not, you know, fully loaded. It doesn't have leather or anything. But this is going to be a quick overview, and we're going to discuss and just see the main differences between both trucks. So first things first, as I said, this is a 2020 Dodge Ram, or not Dodge, just Ram 1500 with the Hemi 5.7 liter. So as you guys all know, the Hemi, the 5.7 specifically, has been around for forever, honestly. And it is a reliable engine. It is pretty good. It's not the best on gas mileage, but it's also pretty robust, and it'll get pretty much anything you need done. And as I said, this one is a Bighorn, so it's not fully loaded. There's no leather, there's none of that stuff, and I'll show you guys when we get into the interior. But overall, this is a pretty good work truck. I mean, it'll get what you need done. It rides pretty good. It's a pretty comfortable drive, and the Hemi isn't a complete slouch. I mean, I know that another engine option that Dodge offers is their 3.6 liter Pentastar V6, which is, I mean, it's all right, but you really don't want to be driving something with that low of torque in a truck, especially if you're going to be hauling things. So the Hemi is definitely the good option. I know they also have a 3 liter Eco Diesel, they call it, which is the Fiat motor, and that one's just complete hot garbage. I mean, it's complete problems, complete engine failures, constant issues. So I would advise against that motor. So your only option really is this one, the 5.7. And yeah, I mean, it's a good looking truck. It's not, you know, a complete, as I said, a complete base. You do have the chrome front end. And I think where we're going to really compare the trucks mostly is the interior. So let's go ahead and hop in the interior and really just look over the main differences. Now, looking at the interior of the Bighorn, it's base. I mean, that's what I'm going to say. It's just pretty much, it's a basic interior. It's not crazy. I mean, it's not a complete base because you do have, you know, the smart access, or not smart access, but the push button start. That's the only main thing. But other than that, it's a pretty base truck. I mean, the interior, as you guys can see, there is some fake leather or like some soft touch, but it's mostly plastic, as to be expected. I mean, it's a work truck. And the interior is just base. I mean, you have a smaller screen. It's not the complete small screen, but it is a smaller screen. And the one thing I've always never liked about these Rams, these newer ones, is this. I hate this, like, you know, turn dial kind of rotational thing. And I know that some of the Fords do, and I don't like it. I prefer the traditional, just, you know, column stick. But yeah, it is what it is. So to start this thing up, of course, as I said, it is push button. So foot on the brake, start button. There you go. You guys hear that 5.7 liter, which honestly sounds pretty good. I mean, doesn't sound bad, but it's also, you know, as I said, this thing's been around forever. So closing this door, it does feel decently solid. I mean, it's not the best. I don't like, and this is gonna sound a little bit weird, but I don't like how short, I guess, this door panel is. So as you guys can see here, there's like no room for pretty much anything. I mean, you have just this to put your arm on, and it just doesn't feel that solid. There's just plastic everywhere. I mean, this is all plastic. This is all plastic, but regardless, it's a work truck, so it's fine. You do have this nice leather wrap steering wheel, so that's nice. I like the gauges. They are pretty clear. You have your coolant temp gauge, your tach, you have your battery voltage, oil pressure, and then gas down here, and then the speedo. So it's nice. And then the center screen, of course, you can mess with it. You can change it between oil life and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty basic. It will just give you all the basic info you need. Down here, this truck is four-wheel drive, so you do have that. To put it in, let's say, four-wheel drive auto, you just click the button up there. It'll tell you it's going to four-wheel drive auto. So it's pretty easy to use. I mean, it's not difficult by any means, but I don't like this at all. I'm not a fan of this, but I mean, it is what it is at this point. Turn the AC on a little bit. But up here, you have Dodge, literally the most basic Uconnect. I mean, there's no Navi, none of that stuff. It does have Bluetooth, so you can do that. I mean, yeah, so you'd have to connect it. But it does have Bluetooth, which is good, I guess. You know, at least it has that modern day thing. You have a compass, I guess, if you get lost or something. But yeah, that's pretty much it. There's nothing really to it. There's no, you know, configurations or anything. Up here you get a 12-volt outlet. And the center console to me also feels really flimsy. I know this is really a bench seat, but it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel that solid, if that makes any sense. It just kind of drops, like, so I don't like that. Down here you get some more storage. Here you have your more storage and stuff. This feels really cheap and flimsy. I don't like this. I mean, I know it's supposed to be soft touch, but it just doesn't feel good. And that's pretty much it, honestly. It's, as I said, it's pretty basic interior. Down here you have the traction button. You just push it down, it'll turn it off. That's for tow haul mode, so if you're gonna you know, pretty tow or haul, whatever. But yeah, overall it's a really basic interior. It's nothing special. But let's go ahead and look at the rear and the rear seats and see how comfortable it really is. Hopping inside this thing, you have a lot of legroom. I mean, a lot of legroom. This is crazy. And I have a good amount of headroom back here. You know, I'm 6 feet tall, so it's decent. It's not bad, but I have that seat set up how I like it, and there's plenty amount of room. I mean, with the seats filled up, look at the amount of room you can put stuff back here. I believe Dodge calls this their quad cab, so you can put a bunch of stuff here. You can sit probably 6 people comfortably, I mean, with that bench seat up, but I don't see why not. I mean, even back here, it's pretty nice. I mean, here somebody could sit over there and it's comfortable. I mean, so it's not bad, but again, you are getting a base truck. But let's go ahead and take a look at that engine option, or just pretty much the only one, the Hemi, and we'll go ahead and switch off to the Ford after that. So here it is. Dodge's, or I just keep saying Dodge, but basically Chrysler Group's long overdue for a replacement, but very dependable 5.7 liter Hemi V8. So what this thing is just a regular old 5.7 liter V8 that's been around since what, the late 90s, early 2000s. So it's definitely been around, but it's not a bad thing, I guess, because it's a very robust engine. It's very reliable compared to the other engine options you have. Speaking of which, as I said, that 3 liter eco diesel or whatever they call it, it's just, do not go for that. I mean, it's, people are going to be in the comments talking about, oh, it's great, it's this. No, it's not. It is not a good motor. Do not buy it. I know of a bunch of people, actually myself included, that have had complete failure with those motors. So I highly recommend against it, but I mean, it's up to you. So you also have the 3.6 liter Pentastar V6. Again, I would avoid that motor. It is reliable, but you really should have something with a good amount of power and torque if you're going to be, you know, hauling stuff or doing stuff with the truck. And then of course you do have this one, the 5.7 liter. But funny enough, there's also an e-torque one, which is this 5.7 liter, but it has like an assisted electric motor. But I won't get into that because it's a completely different review. But aside from this one, makes about 395 horsepower and like 407 pound-feet of torque. So it's not bad. It's not fast. I mean, it's a big truck, but it'll haul, it'll tow, everything you need it to. So overall, just to kind of end up on this truck and move on to the Ford, I guess positive of this truck is I do like the Hemi. It is a reliable motor. It's pretty good. And this thing is mated to an 8-speed, a ZF 8-speed. So that's a good transmission too. The powertrain's pretty good. It depends on, of course, the one you go for. But overall, I'm not a big fan of the interior because it feels like it's too cheap, if that makes any sense. I mean, I know it is a work truck, but at the end of the day, there's stuff that's just too flimsy. And overall, I do like the truck. It is a nice truck. I like the way it looks. But let's go ahead and move on to the F-150 and just let's see if the F-150 can blow this thing out of the water, or if they're pretty much comparable. And now we've moved on to the F-150. So this thing is a 2022 F-150 STX, which just for some background, the STX is basically an XL F-150 with an appearance package and a couple of interior upgrades to make it a little bit more, I guess, non-work trucky, if that makes any sense. But overall, I guess this is the perfect comparison to the Bighorn Ram, because it's sort of in the same price range, or sort of the same level, trim level, because if you go above this, like the XLT, you automatically get that big screen in the interior. And yeah, so this thing is honestly, it's a nice truck. Even the STX is a nice truck. I mean, if you're using this strictly for daily driving and you know, sometimes haul maybe some, I don't know, dirt or landscaping stuff in the back or whatever you got to do, this thing's perfect. I mean, it's great. And just just to state it out there, this thing does have the 2.7 liter EcoBoost V6, so twin turbo V6. And I know you guys are gonna be like, but you were just talking about the Ram, how you need the V8. Well, that's because the Ram doesn't have a twin turbo V6 that makes just as much torque as the V8 option. So this thing is a nice truck overall, as I've said. I do really like this, and the first thing I noticed when I set out with this truck is I like the way this thing drives better than the Ram. And you guys are automatically like, oh, well, you're saying that. I'm not, you know, I'm not just saying that just because it's a Ford. I'm saying that because it genuinely does drive like a nicer truck. I think the smaller wheels make it a lot more comfortable. I drove this exact same road I did with the Ram to get back here, and this thing absorbs bumps so much better. It's not as creaky or whatnot. Of course, you do get there is plastic on the interior because it's not fully loaded, but overall it is a nice truck. And I do think that the ride quality of the STX is a lot better than the Bighorn. But I mean, maybe, you know, that's just me, that's maybe how I noticed it. Maybe you noticed it differently, but again, the same thing. Let's go ahead and hop in the interior, and that's where really the major differences are between the trucks. So first things first, the first thing that the Ram has over I guess this STX is this thing has a switchblade key. So yeah, you don't have push button on this truck. You have to go to that XLT to get that. But honestly, it is what it is. I mean, yeah, it's nice that the Bighorn does offer the push button, which is nice, but I think I don't think it really matters, honestly. I mean, if you're that concerned with it, upgrade to an XLT and you'll have the push button. But yeah, so honestly, these seats, I think these seats are more comfortable than the Bighorn. The only thing I don't like about them is this. I don't like this padding or whatever this thing is. I don't like it. It makes my back feel weird. I don't know if it's just me. I haven't really ever heard that from anybody else. It probably is just me. Maybe I'm just weird. But I don't like this or this, but I think overall the seats are more comfortable. They just seem to be, you kind of sit in them a little bit better, and they seem to be a little bit bigger. So hopping in this truck, let's hop in. First things first, again, the Ram does have a leather steering wheel. This one does have a plastic one. So this is more of a work truck sort of spec. But let's fire this thing up and kind of look over the interior, and I'll tell you why I think this is a better interior. So as you guys heard, that's Ford's 2.7 liter EcoBoost V6. We'll get into that when we talk about the motor. But in terms of the interior, this is what I was talking about when I mentioned the Ram has a short door panel. And I know you guys are automatically like, what are you talking about? But this door honestly also feels a lot nicer to close. I mean, it feels like, you know, I'm closing a solid door. It feels more solid, it feels heavier, and I personally like that. Now, what I meant by that was, look at the amount of door panel you have. I mean, you guys are probably gonna be like, this guy's just weird, but I think this door panel looks higher quality, and it feels like it. I mean, sure, this is plastic, but it doesn't feel like it's just cheap plastic. It honestly has a nice feel to it. I do like this, you know, this stitching right here. I mean, I know it's not real leather, but it's very nice. It's very soft. It's nice. And you do have storage down here like the Ram. Again, it is plastic, but honestly, I feel like the interior on this truck is just much higher quality, even though the other one has more options, if that makes any sense. So looking at the gauges, again, just like the Ram, pretty basic gauges. You have your tach, you have your oil pressure, you have your cooling gauge, excuse me, you have your fuel gauge, and then you have your diff temperature, which is nice that you have that also. You don't want to overheat your diff when you're towing or something. But first things first, thank goodness this one has a column shifter. I don't like the turn dial one on the Ram or whatnot. I prefer these. This just feels a lot nicer in your hand, and it's just a nicer option in my opinion. So very nice. I do like that. Moving on down here, here's how you put it in four-wheel drive. It's kind of like the Ram. They're about similar, both easy to use. You just click 4 high. It will go into 4 high here. You also have 4 low. Obviously, the only time you should use that is if you're off-roading or whatnot. Don't use that on the road. You'll mess up your diff. You have the decently sized screen, just like the Ram here. This one does have navigation, so that's nice that you can get that on the STX. And of course, it has audio. You have all your Bluetooth and all your stuff in here, so it's a nice screen. You do also get a decent backup camera. The Ram also has one as well. I do like it. I honestly do. I prefer the Ford sync system over the Uconnect. It's easier to use, and it's much more responsive. I noticed that in the Ram, there was a delay from when I started the truck and I was driving to when I was like trying to tune the radio and turn the volume and all that. There was a delay. So I do prefer the sync system. I think it's a nicer system. It's more refined, but I'm sure once you move up higher on the Rams, I'm sure the Uconnect nice as well. So yeah, climate control button's pretty basic down here. You have storage, you have more storage down there, you have your cup holders, you have a bunch of storage down here, and honestly that's pretty much it. You have some more storage over there just like the Ram. But yeah, it's a pretty basic interior. It is nice. I do like it. But let's go ahead and move to the rear seat, and we're going to talk about that, because remember, the Ram had a lot of leg room. So we're in the back of the F-150, and it's the same story as the Ram. I have the seat set up the way I like it, and I have a buttload of room. I mean, look at this. This is insane. And I have great headroom. I have more headroom in this truck than I did in the Ram. The Ram, there was like an indent down here, so where I had to keep my head like this to not, you know, hit the roof. If I went like this, I was touching the roof. But here, I have a good amount of headroom. I like it. And I honestly feel like there is a good amount of legroom in here, and there's a large amount of space back here. So you could totally just, you know, lounge out or do whatever you need to. So I do like that. You have vents back here. Obviously, you have a power outlet with a USB-C and a USB cable, which is nice. I do like that a lot. I'm a big fan of, you know, spacious interiors and just being able to be comfortable. And this truck doesn't disappoint. I mean, if you're using this as a work truck, you have a crew of like 5 guys, trust me, they would be perfectly fine back here. You could even take this on a road trip. Now, it is missing the bench seat, just like on the Ram does have the bench seat. This one does not. This one's been optioned with the center console. I prefer the center console, just because you have more room, you have more space to put stuff, but it is, at the end of the day, personal opinion. And yeah, let's go ahead and look at that engine and sort of just discuss it from there. So here it is. This is what's powering the STX. So this is Ford's 2.7 liter Ecoboost V6. Now, in this iteration, it makes about 295, 300 horsepower, but here's the kicker. It makes 400 pound-feet of torque. So it makes just as much torque as the 5.7 liter in the Hemi. And this thing will get much, much, much better gas mileage, in my opinion, because, well, not just my opinion, it's facts that it gets better gas mileage, because you have a smaller engine, but just because it's smaller doesn't mean it's compensating for the weight of the truck. Those turbos are, you know, the spool instantly. You have a good amount of power if you need to pass somebody. And when the first time I ever drove one of these with the 2.7, I was shocked. I thought it was gonna be, you know, sure, it was gonna be all right, decent, but I didn't expect it to be actually quick. It's a quick truck. Now, of course, you do have the option of getting the 3.5 liter Ecoboost, which is the it's not the one out of the Raptor, because since this is a lower end truck, but it's a little bit more power, more torque. Or of course you can get the 5 liter Coyote V8, which is what I would go for, because I like the noise of the V8. I just kind of like how it drives and everything. But this is also a really nice truck. I mean, this motor is fantastic. It gets good gas mileage. It's fairly reliable. I mean, of course it might have a little bit more issues because of the complexity of the turbos and everything than the Hemi, but overall it's a nice truck. And with the F-150, you can get more engine options, unlike the Ram, as we discussed. With the Ram, your only real viable option is the 5.7, but here you can go with this, the 3.5, you get the 5.0. So you have a more variety with the F-150. But let me let's go ahead and kind of just close the video, and then let me give you my final thoughts. So me personally, if I was shopping for a truck, if I was looking for something in this price range, you know, something to where I could work with it and not be worried that I would dent it because it's expensive. Honestly, if I had to pick between this or the Bighorn, I would go with the F-150, just because the new generation F-150, in my opinion, feels a lot more. It's a very solid truck. It's a very refined truck. It's very nice. And I think it just drives much better than the Ram does. I mean, you know, I've never driven a fully loaded Ram. I have driven a limited F-150, and those drive amazingly. So maybe if I drive a fully loaded Ram or something, maybe it'll change my mind. But as of right now, if I was strictly picking between this truck right here or the Bighorn, and I know the Bighorn's in the front, but I would go with the STX, just because it's more refined, it's much nicer. I think the interior is nicer, and I think that while, yeah, I do prefer the sound of the Hemi V8, I think that now with gas prices, the gas mileage on this truck is going to be much more beneficial, and I can tow just as much as the Ram. I mean, the Ram tows about 11,000, this tows about 10,200. So it's, sure, this is a little bit more, but it's right there. Yeah, so overall, I do like this truck a lot. I am a big fan of the new generation F-150. I think it's probably the best truck out there as of right now, because it just does everything right. I mean, it looks great, the interior is nice, the engine options are fantastic, the 10 speeds are a great transmission. So yeah, let me know, you guys. Let me know what you would go for. Would you go for this, or would you go for the Bighorn? I know there's gonna be diehard Dodge guys that are gonna be like, oh, well, you didn't really compare it really well. Well, I did, because I mean, I can't just pick and choose which truck I want, because that's the only Ram we have. So it's not like I could be like, oh, let me get the V6 Ram and show you guys. So overall, I think the Ram is a nice truck. I don't think it's a bad choice. I just think that the F-150 is the better choice. I think it outshines it. But let me know down below what you guys think, and I look forward to all your opinions, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.